Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to share with you all the books that I've read in July. We're gonna do a quick wrap up with those books. I'm not quite sure, I think it's 6 books, we'll see. But yeah, it was an okay reading month. I was very busy, but I'm still quite happy with what I've read. So the first book I finished in July was M to the WTF by Samantha Allen. This is a short autobiography by the author, and this was a audiobook that I listened to. It was free on Audible for me because it was one of those included ones. It was only 3 hours and some minutes, so it wasn't really that long. I really enjoyed it. I think that the author did a really good job at what she was trying to do. Basically, this is a memoir about her transition, and she is focusing on more funny bits or just like, you know, a little bit more fun stuff about transitioning. So Samantha Allen grew up in a Mormon family, so obviously this wasn't a very easy thing to do, and when you listen to this book you definitely can see the heavier themes as well. But as I said, she's just trying to focus a little bit more on the positive things and also on the funny things. And so I really enjoyed it. In the end I gave it 4.5 stars, and I think if you're looking for something short and sweet that is entertaining but also informative, this is a great choice. Then the next book I finished was Medusa, The Girl Behind the Myth by Jessie, Burton, illustrated by Olivia, Lomenech, Gill. And this is a novel which is also illustrated, and it's a retelling or reimagining of the myth of Medusa. So we follow her on the island where she was kind of exiled when a mysterious boy arrives, and yeah, we just kind of see what happens next. I really enjoyed this book. This reminded me a lot of Circe in the way that it is a feminist retelling of the Greek myth, but also of The Surface Breaks by Louise O'Neill, which is very similar in themes and also in the way it is written, very short and to the point, and focusing on the question what girls should and shouldn't do when they fall in love with a boy for the first time. And I thought that was just such an interesting theme to explore here, and if you enjoyed one, you will enjoy the other, I think. The illustrations were also really beautiful, so I think that was a great addition to the book as well, and overall I decided to give it 4.5 stars too. With this one I would advise you to look up some content warnings though, because there is some quite dramatic stuff happening as well. Then the next book I already had to return to the library, and that was We Are Not Free by Traci, Chee. This is a historical fiction book focusing on teenagers during the Second World War in the United States, and especially on Japanese American teenagers. And as you may know, after Pearl Harbor, Japanese American people were incarcerated in these camps. They were ripped out of their lives. They were kind of like abducted even, and they were brought to these camps. They didn't know how long they would have to stay there, what the reason for it was, and they were basically not allowed to keep any of their belongings and stuff like that. And so with this book we see 14 different teenagers, how they survive these circumstances. And I thought it was a very, very interesting book. I really enjoyed reading it, even though it is a very hard topic, and at times, it just really dragged me down emotionally. So that's something to keep in mind. Again, look up the content warnings for this book, because there is some dramatic scenes in there, and it had me crying at the end and stuff like that. The thing I didn't really love about it was that it was really hard to keep track of the characters, because every single chapter was told from a different point of view, and so all the character relationships kind of switched around the whole time, because, you know, in the first chapter you're in a person's head where character X is the brother, and then you switch into another POV, and then that brother is now the best friend or something like that. And I found that very hard to keep track of. So that just kept me confused, and it kept me from really feeling for these characters, because I never was sure if that character was this character from the chapter before. I don't know if I explained that well, but it was just hard to keep track of. And so in the end, I decided to give this one 4.5 stars as well. Then I also finished my next audiobook, which was In Deeper Waters by F.T. Lukens. This is a very fun adventure story following a young prince who goes on his coming of age tour, but while he's there he gets abducted, and he also meets a cute boy who has some secrets of his own. And I really enjoyed this. I thought it was really fun, really sweet. I really loved the family dynamics in this book. It was just so wholesome, and the way these siblings cared for each other and supported each other was really well done. I had such a fun time with this. I'm not a romance reader, so the romance wasn't like the thing that made me love this book, I guess. I didn't really have any issues with it, but I also didn't really feel anything for the romance, to be honest. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind, that maybe it is not the strongest. But it was just so sweet. It was such a sweet book, and it also had some deeper themes, and it explored some deeper things there. For example, the great-grandfather, I think, or the grandfather of the main character was a very terrible magician who suppressed people, and it dealt with, you know, what the family does to now get people to trust them again and stuff like that. So yeah, I thought it was very interesting and very fun. I decided to give it 4 stars. One thing I also felt a little bit weird about in this book is the portrayal of the female characters. I felt like they were not the strongest, and they were very much pushed to the sidelines, and so yeah, I wanted to see a little bit more development and a little bit more characterization of those female characters as well. Then the next book I read is The Girls I've Been by Tess Sharpe. This is a YA kind of mystery book, maybe thriller, about a girl called Nora who gets into a bank robbery with her ex and her girlfriend, which is a little bit of an awkward situation. Her ex is also her best friend, so yeah, that makes for some awkward moments. But yeah, there's a bank robbery going on, and as it turns out, Nora has been brought up by a con woman, and so she has some tricks up her sleeves as well. And in this book we basically follow the bank robbery timeline, and then we also get flashbacks to the lives that Nora had with her mother. And I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was really fun. I really enjoyed the characters. I think the mystery was great. I had such a good time reading this book. It was also a very fast read, something that would be perfect for a readathon if you're looking for something like that. And also, obviously, I love that the cover basically has my haircut. That was the reason why I wanted to pick it up. So I can definitely recommend this. I think that, again, content warnings should be looked up for this one, because this deals a lot with parental abuse. But I just, yeah, as I said, I felt like it had a good tone and it really worked. It was so thrilling, I couldn't put it down, and I rushed through this book. So in the end, I decided to give this one 4 stars as well. And then next I picked up Behold the Dreamers by Imbolo and Mbue. This is one of the authors where I have a strong feeling they might become one of my favorite authors, and this is the first book she wrote. So in this one we follow a family who is from Cameroon, and they came to the US to start a new life there, and we basically follow the ups and downs of that. And the backdrop is the financial crisis after the Lehman Brothers bank was bankrupt or whatever happened to them. So basically the husband of this couple, Jende, he gets a job as a driver for one of the executives of the Lehman Brothers, and through that we see kind of what happens and the ripple effects through all of the strata of the American society. So yeah, I really like this. I think it's a very great exploration of these two families, the Cameroonian family and then also the very rich family of that executive, and we get to know these characters so well and do a deep dive into their lives and see what's just happening there. And it was just, yeah, just very interesting, you know. This is not a book that I would have picked up if it wasn't for the author and if it wasn't in the library, but I'm very glad that I've read it. I decided to give it 4 stars in the end because the ending just made me a little bit too mad. I just really didn't like how Gender in the end treats his wife, because his wife was my favorite character. She was so fierce and strong and amazing, and I felt like she deserved so much better at the end of this book. But yeah, apart from that, I would definitely recommend this if you're interested in reading about yeah, this immigrant experience in the US. And this last book I want to do in here as well, even though I finished it on the 1st of August, and that is Skin of the Sea by Natasha Bowen. This is the first in a duology, and this follows a mermaid character, and this is set in historical times, so I think the 1500s, something like that, when the first slave ships leave the African continent, and the main character gets turned into a mermaid after she was killed by slavers and thrown overboard, and now she is serving the goddess who turned her into a mermaid to collect the souls of people who die on these ships. And one day she comes across a boy who is not dead, and she decides to save him, and that really is not supposed to happen. And yeah, so we have this big adventure of her trying to find a way to communicate with the kind of maker of the universe to apologize for saving this boy, because, as I said, it was not supposed to happen. And yeah, with that we see a lot of African inspired mythology and the gods and stuff like that, so it was really interesting. I really enjoyed seeing these different takes. Like, some things are very similar to other mythologies that are more popular, and other things are very unique, so I enjoyed seeing that. I felt like this book tried to do a little bit too much in too short a time. I think for all the mythology that is crammed in here, it would have needed to be a little bit longer, or some things should have been cut out, because it just felt like one thing after another after another. You never had really any time to get to know the characters really well, because they were always rushing through things. This book is only 300 pages, so I think you could have taken a little bit more time with it all. So that's the biggest critique I have of this. Apart from that, it was a really fun story that explored a lot of interesting things. I didn't really care about the romance. As I said, I'm not a romance reader, so I don't really mind it. But I felt like this one was a little bit insta-lovey, but I don't care. You know, I really don't care. I think this was a fun read. I gave it 3.5 stars, and if you are interested, I would recommend it. I would not expect too much mermaid action. That's one critique I have of this book, that most of it takes place on land and you don't really see the main character being an actual mermaid. So yeah, I wanted to have a little bit more of that. I don't think I will continue with this series because I've seen some mixed reviews. The sequel is coming out in September, so very soon. But I have a feeling that I will like the ending of this book more than the ending that the sequel will provide. And you can totally read this as a standalone, so I think that's what I will do. So that's all the books that I've read in July. So I think it was 7 overall, if I counted correctly. Let me know what your favorite book of July was. I would love to hear about that, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye!